American Homestead.
Go over real quick with the House Bill 1032. This is going to come into effect in November 1st of this year. This is our food freedom bill, and then I'll give it back over to her because she's got more to talk about brand management,
Yep.
IDs, stuff like that.
We'll get into the good, meat and potatoes.
Stuff. Yeah, the part that she's better at, then I'll just walk away.
No, you won't.
So-
You're stuck here.
I live here, so.
I know, you can't go nowhere.
So House Bill 1032, this is a project not only us, but hundreds of people around the state have been working on. We supported this. We actually had a different bill that was a little bit freer, if you'll forgive my term, because I'm real big about personal freedoms, and that's the way it should be. But it did offer more freedoms than this one. This one still has, it's better than where we were by far.
But it's not quite where we want to be.
Exactly. So we're getting there. So I just want to go over some highlights about it. This is House Bill 1032. It's the Oklahoma Food Freedom Act. I know, every time they drive by. The House Bill 1032. Yeah. It's the Oklahoma Food Freedom Act, or Homemade Food Freedom Act. And I'm just going to cover a few of the highlights that I've noticed as I've read through the statute. So this is actually replacing the Baker's Bill. For those of you who don't know about the Baker's Bill, it allows you to sell baked goods out of a home kitchen up to a certain extent and at certain places. This really opens it up beyond that. So the home food establishment, and basically we'll go through the definitions of a home food establishment, shall mean a business on the premises of a residence in which homemade food products are created for sale or resale. Simple.
Yep.
Simple. It used to say at farmers markets, on-site, cooperatives, and so it's through membership groups. We've taken that completely out. So it's just your home food establishment is any place you make the food. It's your home. We used to have a $20,000 limit, the amount you could make without having to go to a commercial kitchen. That's been up to $75,000 per year.
That's great.
So that's great. I mean, that's if you're pulling $75,000 out of your kitchen, you're doing good.
Yeah.
You're doing real good.
It's real good.
Homemade food products shall mean food including beverage which is produced and if packaged at a residence provided. However, homemade food products shall not mean alcoholic beverages or unpasteurized milk or cannabis marijuana products. So anything you produce in your home, save alcohol and milk, and because milk and alcohol are regulated by the feds, can be sold. So
And then the cannabis is regulated by the state.
yeah, cannabis they still want $2,500 for because you make a lot more money. You'd reach that $75,000 pretty quick.
Yeah.
So with these items now, it doesn't specifically state eggs, and that is a big question with eggs. So you sell your chicken eggs, you can sell them to anyone you want from your place, unless you have your license, don't you, Tracy? Your grader's license. It's like $25. Yeah, and you can be a grader, and then you can sell it anywhere. But that is also a federally regulated item, so that's why that's not included in here. Then it goes into non-time and temp items, anything that doesn't have to hold temperature for a certain amount of time. Of course, one of our big things we really wanted to get on was legally in Oklahoma, it's illegal to sell canned goods. If I sell you
Which is ridiculous.
Absolutely. We're an agrarian society. We're formed by homesteaders, and that was a mode of payment, all through my great-grandparents and my grandparents' time was canned goods. So to get that back into legal, because they were making little old ladies criminals, is what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely ridiculous. So luckily we've found some people that are working with it to get it right. So where we are at now, so produce shall mean produce. I read it wrong. To produce shall mean to prepare a food product by cooking, baking, drying, mixing, cutting, canning, fermenting, preserving, dehydrating, growing, raising, or other process. And product shall mean the person who produces, the producer shall mean whoever makes it.
Right.
So that opens it up to dang near anything.
Right.
Anything you make in your home, it does have a drawback of meat and meat byproducts right now. That was because we faced a really big problem from the Oklahoma pork producers and the Farm Bureau. They did not want meat put in there for one reason or another. However, that being said, you had to take your cows up and you have them butchered at a USDA facility. You can sell them all day long.
Yep.
No big deal.
There's a guy at the Owasso Farmers Market.
We have 3 here that sell.
He does chickens that way.
Yeah.
And then Danielle Schmidt, she
Danielle
Schmidt's
and
Livestock.
Danielle does
And
both
then-
pork and cattle. Melissa does cows, and now
cows.
Chuck, he's doing Wagyu beef.
And the Wagyu beef, okay.
Yeah. So we have 3 different meat producers that you can buy from. Each one is a little bit different.
They are.
Danielle is grain fed. Melissa is all grass fed.
Yes.
And then of course we have the Wagyu.
And then
so-
the Wagyu is its own little
Yeah,
critter.
and I have yet to try one of those, and I hear it's delicious. So, carrying on, the production and sale of homemade food products that meet the following conditions shall be exempt from all licensing. All licensing and other requirements of the State Department of Health and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, who oversees us. We don't want government interference into this because you guys are responsible to your customers.
Yes.
If you can something bad, I mean, it's not going to stop someone from suing you.
Right.
If you poison them. But you guys are responsible to your customers. So you put out the best product possible and the best product they have, then they have an understanding and agreement that this is homemade.
They
and
know.
That, you know, it comes with risk. But I'll be honest with you, and I did the research. I have found one incident, and it was in Canada. Wasn't even in the United States, of foodborne illness from a farmer's market. One in Canada. Nothing in the States that I've found to date.
So that just tells you a little bit of how ridiculous the laws
Exactly.
are right now.
Well, and it was made for corporations. It was
Yeah.
made to protect corporate interest and to heck with the farmer. So as we go on, the non-time temperature-controlled safety products shall be sold by the producer directly to the customer, either in person, by remote means, including but not limited to the internet and telephone, or by a designated agent. That is a huge deal because before you had to sell it specifically. If you made it, you had to be there, you had to sell it. You couldn't have an agent.
Nope.
Now you can have your cousin, you can have one of your kids, whoever, come up and sell it for you.
Right.
So non-time and temp controlled products shall be delivered. You can do it, by the producer's designated agent directly to the consumer or third-party vendor. That opens up retail to you. By third-party vendor or third-party carrier, such as parcel, that's delivery. Time and temperature controlled will be a little bit different. That one shall be sold by the producer directly to the consumer, either in person or by remote means, included but not limited to internet or telephone. You can sell it over the internet. You can put your pies on there, but it has to be delivered specifically. So time or temperature controlled food products shall be delivered directly to the customer. If you got a cheesecake, right? And it's got to stay cold, otherwise it'll spoil. You have to deliver it directly to it.
Right. You can't ship that out.
Actually,
have to-
you can.
Can you with
You
ice?
can.
As long as it stays.
As long as it stays within temperature. So what it says here, it says,
Well.
before a producer produces or sells item at time temperature controlled for safety, homemade food products, if you're selling time or temperature controlled items, okay, so that is fresh stuff that has to be maintained, okay? You do have to have the food handlers training course. It's like online, it costs like $20. You go online and literally you pass your test right there and you print it off and you're good to go. I highly recommend doing it. It says it's 8 hours and shall not exceed 8 hours. I think most of them do it in like an hour and a half
Yeah.
and you're
that's
done.
really-
You take the test, but it's all online now. You don't have to go in.
Yeah.
So that is the only difference, the only regulation that's going to be required if you're doing time and temperature controlled items is that you have to have that serve safe. Other than that, you don't have to have it.
That's awesome.
Okay, but also still your house does not have to be inspected as a commercial kitchen.
Which is nice.
Yeah, because that's a
'Cause that's ridiculous.
pricey venture
That's
to get your house
ridiculous.
inspected, get your kitchen, and most of them won't do it because it's in a house.
Right.
It has to be a separate building and separate features and all this stuff. Just for them to come see it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for the inspection. That's crazy. And then if you have to fix something, it goes up from there. So Agricultural, Food, and Forestry shall make a list of approved training available on its website, which should be there by November 1st. Otherwise, it's serve safe. You can go on the Tulsa County Health Department and get that done. Now, there are items that must be put on your packaging if you're a home producer. Now, this does not apply, the way I understand it, does not apply to homegrown produce. So if you're selling green beans and corn and stuff like that, I don't believe this applies. I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. I'm just telling you the way I understand it. So you want your name and phone number of the producer. You want the physical address where the product was made, a description of the food product, the ingredients of the food product in descending order of proportion. So whatever's
And that's pretty
the most.
standard across industry. I have to do my stuff the same way. I have to list where it's manufactured. I have to have my address, phone number. I have to make sure not only do I have to have everything in order of, descending quantity, but I also have to have the scientific name as well as the common standard name. That's just legality. So it's pretty standard across the industries.
Is there any discussion or whatever about having your actual physical address on there? Because that's got some danger to it.
We have had discussions with this recently. One of our vendors was told he has to have his physical address. I don't know that they've got an answer yet, but I think a P.O. box may work on the packaging. Because you're right, you don't want someone coming directly to your house.
Now, I will say, I have
Except for me, mine's on Google.
never had anybody
Yeah, but there's some people
show
that-
up nefariously with ill intentions. God help them if they ever did.
So there is some
But-
font size requirements that they do put in there that has to be certain font size. Now they do allow you to either fix a label or place a sign on some of it. If all that information won't fit on the label, you can put a sign up at your location and use
Which
that.
is nice, because I can't do that. It has to be on the product.
Yeah.
Question about that. Like, you see my logo right there, I have everything that's listed.
Right.
hmm
I don't know if it's in the order that I put it in. No, it just.
They want it in descending order. So what they
Or
will,
the amounts that are.
so if the main ingredient is wheat, you would put what type of wheat it is. And then if you have 4 eggs and you go by how much is in each item.
Here's the
How
thing.
much of
I
it
don't
is-
know that they would actually.
They're not going to check. They're not going to know. But,
Just know it's in there.
I mean, I put what's in there.
right.
I would just put the chocolate and the nuts at the bottom because that's usually the least of
Right.
the item.
The salt.
Flat, there you go.
Now, if the FDA ever wanted to get ugly with me, they could come in and they could literally tear me open. So I absolutely have to know. Like they can call my recipe out and go, I want to know what is in this Bear Bar. So I need percentages, I need exact amounts, I need batch numbers, there's a lot more that I have to do on my end that this guy's frees you up from not having to do. So this is a great thing.
So one more question about this here, like, the incident I told you that happened with me today.
Yep.
So would this happen in November?
It shouldn't happen in November. That being said, it'll be up to the individual location what they
Right.
will allow. Because they still have the right of refusal to say, no, you can't come in. Yeah. I think they're making a big mistake if they choose to do something like that.
Because they're going to limit their sales.
Yeah, and
for
if-
people.
Samples, but you can't sell anything.
Yeah, if I
That's
was to
ridiculous.
limit who was to come out here, we would have the same, so many vendors, and that's all it would ever be. I believe in free market. I believe you should have the opportunity to try.
Absolutely.
So come out, and that's what I do. I don't ever limit what people can sell. I mean as long as it's legal.
Tulsa, that was Tulsa.
Yeah, and in the city of Tulsa, now we'll get to that here in a minute because there is some specifics for counties and deals. So you have to have the statement including any allergens, including milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, soy, wheat. To say, hey, this may contain that stuff. Legible print stating this product was produced in a private residence that exempt from government licensing and inspection. That must be verbatim on there. Doesn't always have to be on the packaging, but it does have to be on the sign where they buy it, so they have the knowledge that okay.
Just so they're aware of where it was made.
If the homemade food product is packaged and distributed interstate, which you guys are interstate, so if you're going across state lines, it will require federal intervention, and so that can change according to federal law.
I not only have to make sure I'm legal in Oklahoma, but I have to make sure I'm legal in Kansas and in Missouri and wherever else carries my stuff. If they have particular guidelines, I have to follow that. For my product to be carried at a store in Florida, Florida has a lot stricter guidelines than we're at. So I would have to jump through even more hoops.
Right. And that's what one of our cheese guys, he's out of Kansas, so he has to jump through the Kansas hoops and the Oklahoma hoops. And it's a mess. And that's why he hadn't been out there yet this year. He's trying to get through all the red tape on that. But the homemade food products shall not contain seafood or meat byproducts, or meat food products as defined by Section 301.2 of Title IX. So if you ever get a chance to look at that, see what it is. Unless you're making mincemeat pies or, certain things, then you're fine. Now, chicken, poultry is a federal deal, so that falls under that. The information required, it must be at least a 10-point font when you put it on there. So number 10, which is pretty small. Yeah. So on the label, affixed to the package of the homemade food. On the label, affixed to a container if the food is product is offered for sale in bulk. On a placard displayed at the point of sale, and on a card or other item that can be made available to the customer and is readily carryable if the homemade food product is not packaged. So you can have a sign, you can put it on a business card, you can send it with them, and that works. Displayed on, if you do a web page, you sell it on the web page, make sure it's there. So here's my fun part. Nothing in the Homemade Food Freedom Act shall be construed to impede the State Department of Health in any investigation of a reported foodborne illness. Obviously, we don't want anybody to get sick either.
No.
So nothing in this law is going to impede them from coming and investigating. Should someone say they got sick from an item, doesn't mean. I mean, they're still. It protects you on the sense that they're aware that it's home produced, it's not licensed. So you have afforded some protection there. But the Department of Health will may still come in and check. Let's see. Upon receipt of a consumer complaint, the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture shall have the authority to request proof of completion of the food safety training, verify the producer's gross sales, so they can check your records. They can check your food safety card.
They're going to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and ensure that it's complied with the labeling and delivery. May fine a producer who violates the act. So the fine for this is like $300 if you violate it. So it's not a big deal. I don't foresee them coming out and hammering away people if your font's not 10. They're super nice people, I'll be honest with you. Let me back up. The people from the Department of Agriculture who I've dealt with, super nice people. They're here to help. My understanding is the health department people are actually, some of them are pretty friendly. Yeah. Yeah, and they do, and I've reached out to their supervisors because I had questions, and they'll answer just about
And even the
anything.
FDA, if you have to run in with them, they're here to help you make sure you're compliant. They don't want to come in and shut you down. They want you to follow the rules simply because legality dictates that. But I know soap businesses that they've come in and there's been a lot of things that the individual had to change. They weren't keeping batch numbers. They had ingredients sitting on the floor. You can't do that. So there's different regulations that they had to go in, and they walked them through it. And they said, okay, well, we're going to give you a week to do this. Okay, great. Now we're going to take the next step. We're going to give you a week to do this. And if you need help, you call us. And so they really help.
They really are. They're there for you. Now, granted, you won't have to inspect from your home. There won't be an inspection. But it's something that you want to keep an idea of. And you want to keep everything right because you're relating to your customers.
Right.
So Section 5.4, this is the one I was actually thinking of earlier, states nothing in the Homemade Food Freedom Act shall be construed to prevent the counties from enacting ordinances regulating the operation of home food establishments. I'm thinking, what? Why are we going to let a county by county change how we operate?
Exactly.
However, there's a comma, and it says provided such ordinances do not conflict with the establishments, provided such ordinances do not conflict with the provisions of the Homemade Food Freedom Act or impede or restrict the sale of homemade food products in compliance with the law. They cannot come in and make a different law that prevents you from doing something that this bill allows
Says
you
you
to do.
can.
And if they do, they're in violation. That's a good thing. It keeps a little bit, because you get a lot of small towns, you get a lot of counties that are looking for ways to raise funds. They're going to start being stuff. All of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So, no beekeepers here, but there is a whole section on beekeeping that allows them some freedoms as well. And the last section, of course, is no county, municipal, corporation, consolidated government, or political subdivision of the state shall adopt or continue in effect any ordinance, rule, regulation, or resolution prohibiting, impeding, or restricting sales or distribution in compliance with this law. So they shouldn't be able to mess with this. Shouldn't. Doesn't mean they won't try. Yeah, they're available on the website, but if you don't want to access it, you can have my copy. Yeah, you want it? Okay. All right, I'm gonna turn the rest over to Jamie because she's gonna talk about branding, social media, website design, online sales, driving sales, all sorts of fun stuff.
All sorts of fun stuff.
American homestead.